Hello and welcome to this tutorial about texturing in 3dsmax. This is just an introduction to using the material editor, materials, and just basic UV unwrapping. Okay, we're going to work on the barrel that was created in my previous tutorial about introduction to modeling in 3dsmax. This is the barrel. The only difference between the barrel I have in front of me and the barrel that you would have if you'd gone through the tutorial is that I have converted it to an editable poly and then gone through and detached. That's, you go into the element, you select the element and click detach. I've detached every element. I've kept the top and the bottom as whole elements instead of splitting them up into blanks, but I've detached them so that it's easier to unwrap. Okay, let's get started. As you can see, we can see a blue barrel here. Now, it's blue, therefore it has material. But this material it has is the default that was given to it when it was created in 3dsmax. We could change colours here, but that gives us limited control over the material, and that's not what we want. What we do want is to use the material editor. Now, there's two views to this material editor. This is the slate material editor, and there is a compact material editor. This is the old-fashioned compact material editor, but I prefer the slate material editor. I just like seeing the nodes. Okay, and if you right click anywhere in this grid area, you can create a new material or map. Okay, so the materials that you would have available depend on the renderer that you have assigned at that very moment. It could be Mental Ray, Arnold, V-Ray, depending on what you have installed. But I've decided just to go with General and Scanline, just so that it's more applicable to absolutely everybody. Okay, I could choose physical material here, which is slowly becoming the standard in the industry, but it's a bit more complex, so I'm just going to go with the traditional Scanline standard. Now, the standard materials have a diffuse, which is the base color, and specular, which is how shiny it is. As you can see, our barrel is still blue, which means that we have not assigned our material. We could assign it by either dragging from the output node, drag there, or selecting our object and just selecting the material, assign material to selection, and it's all selected. Okay, so if we click on the color, we can see that it changes the color of the barrel. We are controlling that. Saturation, lots of different things we can do to it that we couldn't do over here in standard. And the specularity we can change here, which is we can make it shinier. Now it looks a little bit metallic, doesn't it? And we can change the glossiness to maybe make it look, that looks metallic as well. Make it look plasticky. Yeah, that might look a bit plastic. Yeah, that looks plastic. So just by changing the diffuse and especially the specularity and glossiness, we can achieve so many effects and create so many different types of materials. Okay, but materials that you can't create with just that are any that have any sort of different colors. These are just a block color, which nobody really wants. Now we get more definition than this by using maps, which are 2D images that we project onto our object. Now we can bring our maps in by either clicking here, this map slot for diffuse, or by grabbing the diffuse color input node, which is the same as here, and just dropping it into any blank space. Now this brings up possible maps. We could bring in a bitmap from our own computer, but for now we're just going to use the checker, which comes preloaded. And if we click on the map and just press Show Shaded Material in Viewport. Now, that is not a checker. That's not a checker because our barrel has no good UV map. The UV map tells the computer how to project the 2D image that you've given it, which in this case is this checker, onto our 3D object. And with bad UV map, it's just distorted. Now, if we distorted this map, we could get it to look correct, at least on the top. But that means distorting our 2D map, and that is never the road that we should go down. We should always take care of this by changing the UV map of the 3D model. Okay, just showing you different things that we could have done here. This can be red. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So we'll keep that black and white. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to adjust the UV map so that our checker, our undistorted checker, let's put it at 5 by 5, doesn't look so distorted. So we'll close our material editor and go on to one of our planks. Now on this plank, I'm just going to open up an Unwrap UVW modifier, and I can work on just this plank, and I will be able to copy and paste this modifier to all of these because I know they came from the same primitive, because I remember that. It's not always possible, but thankfully if objects are similar enough, you can copy and paste their UVWs. So let's just select just this so we can concentrate on this. Now inside of Unwrap, you've got your selection, which is the vertex, the edge, and the polygon. The same as Edit Poly. You've got your Ignore Back Facing, Grow, Shrink, but the most important button is Open UV Editor. This shows how your 3D object is being mapped into the two-dimensional world. So we can see this polygon is like this. That's not correct at all. That's very long and thin, that's why we have that distortion. If we grab the vertices here and bring this down, that's much better. We can see that this polygon is closer to its original shape, and by doing so, everything's looking a little bit better. In order to better see this actually, you can see the map here. I'm going to increase the tiling, so I'll make this 1010. Yeah, that's better. You can see that it's still distorted. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to grab everything, make sure that backface coloring is disabled, and we're just going to give it a nice quick planar map. This is always the first step in my opinion, because sometimes it can give you some really nice results straight off the bat. Which it has. Look at how clean that is. Now we could leave it there, but there is a lot of distortion here on the side. You can see that if you go into angle distortion, area distortion, that's the one. And you can see this is red. Any map would be fine here, but would distort almost, well, you wouldn't be able to see anything. It would just be an absolute blur of a single pixel spread across his entire face, because here there's only a single pixel spread across that entire face. So we need to unwrap this 3D model like a present, which is why it's called Unwrap UVW. So what we're going to do is just select, it's going to pop this back face color back on, select this front face, perfect, and we're going to separate that from the back. So we're just going to click break, and that hasn't broken anything in your actual 3D model, that's only separated them in this 2D projection. So now we can grab that and move it. Go along here. Using shift, that selected all the edge that I wanted, and we'll press break. That's got it nice. Okay, so we have this as one piece, the front, we have the back piece, and we have the edge piece. Okay. Now, in order to unwrap this, I'm going to select these corners of the edges and break them. Select these corners of the edges and break them, and then connect these again. So there, and stitch. Here, and stitch. I'm going to grab all this front face that I created, and I'm just going to planar map it again, and then I'm going to relax it. That's what I wanted. Relaxing just takes the tension that you could see in here. I mean, you can see a bit of tension here still, and it just relaxes that tension. It pulls it. It's like stretching it. So if we were to cut here to relieve tension, cut and cut. That's down here. So you can see, we can see in the green where we've cut, and now we select this and relax. You can see that the tension has been released where we cut, and that means for better UV map when you release the tension. Now this is quite small stuff, so it depends what level of detail you want to get into when you're UV wrapping. If you go into a high level of detail, you could be doing this for days for a very simple piece. It's very time consuming is UV unwrapping. So we'll just relax that. Okay. I'll just relax these. They're nice and relaxed. That one goes here. That one goes here. We can see by the blue. Okay, and we'll start stitching these on. Stitch. You can see how the checker is going over. There's no break here. That's because we did this. On this side, where there's still breaks, you can see how there's a cut. They don't flow naturally from one over the other. It goes here, then it's cut. But up here, it just flows naturally over the corner without any sort of weird cut like this. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're stitching them. Okay, and now that everything is together, we'll select it all and relax it again. And that's beautiful. Okay, we'll just relax you by yourself. And there we have it. We still have a break here. Quite an obvious break, you can see, but no one's ever going to see that. So it's best to hide your breaks around the back. There will always be breaks. Okay. Now, what we can do is copy this over to the others. So copy and paste instanced. This is just the way. Okay, perfect. Now that was actually the hardest of all of them. If we just grab the top here, use an unwrap UVW. You don't even need to open it up really. Just take off back facing, select all the polygons, and planar. Now you can see that before it planered automatically quite nicely. This time it's just done it wrong. What we need to do is change it to Z-axis so it projects from the top. So we'll just press that again, and beautiful. That is exactly what we wanted. Okay, and so I'll copy that, unwrap, go on to the next. First I need to unselect polygon, grab this guy, paste instanced. Okay, now just for the bands, unwrap UVW, open UVW editor. Now, by default, cylinders are quite nice and have already come nicely nicely unwrapped. But it is distorted because we changed the size and we messed around with it. But the basis is still good, as you can see. We'll do that. I'll make it. Thing is, it thinks it needs to be bigger. Just to see the squares, we'll just make it bigger, even though we'll have to make it fit within this when the time comes. Okay, if we wanted to do all of this in one piece, so there's hardly any breaks, instead of doing it with a map, a texture map, which is what we're going to do with the planks, it's probably best if we just do this one procedurally. We still need a good UVW, a good square UVW, but it doesn't matter about it being so small. and the texture looking so big. If we had a normal texture for this, it would look pixelated, or we would need an extremely large texture. Okay, so we'll just copy that, and select paste instanced, paste instanced, and paste instanced. Okay, good. So now we have quite a nicely unwrapped barrel. We can go ahead and create some simple materials for it. We're not going to go too in depth in this tutorial, as it's already gone on quite long enough because of the unwrapping. So first of all, we're just going to create material, a standard material for the wood, and a standard material for the metal. Okay. Now for the wood, what's going to make it wood is the map that we're going to give it. You can just download any bitmap off of the internet that is just Google search wood texture. I've got this one here, and there you have it. Not distorted, and it looks fine. Oops, I need to attach that one as well. There you go. And now for the metal, we'll just attach it to this one. And we're just going to use the basics here to create a relatively new shiny metal. This specularity up, a bit of glossiness. That's just a nice shine. It's a very new barrel. In a follow-up tutorial, I will make this barrel look a bit more realistic, add some weathering to it, but not for now. One quick thing that we could do to increase the realism though is add what's called a bump map. So I'm just going to grab for the wood a bump, another bitmap, and grab this one that you saw here, which is a black and white version of the same diffuse. And what this has done, if you look along the edges here, it's just added another layer of realism. It's added an optical effect that makes it look like all that small detail exists, and there are actual small grooves. Look at it with and without, and with. You have to admit that is a big change in realism. Okay. So this is as far as we're going to go with this, which is the basic introduction to materials and texturing. So I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thank you very much.